if I use these words right, I might not know who they impact or how they impact them, but it will be impactful. I knew that I couldn't fix it by myself, but I knew that if I created the foundation, right? Words are rich, right? Something that we now displayed on a daily basis, we can combat the words that, again, negative self-talk. We can combat all the other words that's putting out in the music industry, right? Common social media.
Yeah.
I know now that the side that I choose that I want to be on, and that's putting out positivity into the world, right?
Yeah.
And so we do that at Words Rich Foundation, right?
Yeah.
We work with the youth and their families, teaching them tools, providing resources through mentoring and coaching to help them build resistance, right? Become productive members in society, right? And we do that by speaking life into them.
Do you think anything is possible inside of Sin City, Las Vegas? I believe what God is doing is that he's bringing people together under the spirit of unity to display that anything and everything is possible through him. This is Las Vegas United. Well, hello and welcome to Las Vegas United. I'm your host, Dr. Presley. I want to welcome you if you're watching from Keen 17. If you're watching from my app, thank you for downloading it and tuning in. If you're watching from YouTube, we want to thank you guys for tuning in. And also, too, make sure if you haven't already, subscribe, hit that bell so that whenever we go live, you know what's going on inside of your city. Speaking of inside of your city, I have a special guest with me today. I have Oli Porter from Words of Rich. What's going on, my guy? Words are rich. My apologies. Words are rich. How you doing?
Words are rich. Words of rich. The concept is there. And first and foremost, thank you, right? Before I tell you anything about how I'm doing, I got to tell you thank you for what you're doing, right? Thank you for the team that you guys have put together here, the opportunity that you guys continue to create, and how you guys continue to show and shine light, right? Not just on yourselves, but to others, right? On to others. As I believe we're here to do, right?
Yes.
So and then thank you again for asking me, right? I think we want to about going later on to this day. I'm thinking that when I'm getting ready to answer this question, I'm thinking, have anyone asked me that question today, right? Like, how am I doing?
Yeah.
So that's why I say thank you. So you were the first one to ask me today, and I'm doing great.
Good.
Choosing not to complain.
Come on.
Notice I said choice, right?
Yeah.
Choosing not to complain, because things are actually good, right? When you sit down, and I call it like the 5-second light switch. When you hit the switch for a while, and you just think about it, like what's really going on?
Yeah.
And I'm fine. Went to the gym, early in the morning. Put some good food in my system afterwards. I've been doing acts of service all day. That's what I call work. Acts of service. That's my terminology for it. Yeah. Now I'm here in the presence of you, in the presence of the Lord, right? We together with two or more gathered, he's in the midst, right?
On,
so we know that. So that's how I'm doing. I'm doing good. Words of Rich Foundation. So I'm excited to be able to sit here and have this conversation with you today.
Oh, dude, man, thank you, man. Dude, it's a privilege, honestly, because like you guys it's people like you and other individuals that are actually out in the streets, right? Out in our city doing the work, right? Going places that God has not called us to, but has called you to, right? And so that's the biggest part is you are answering the call that God has placed on your life, has put in your heart. I heard it the best that, that obviously you're not stepping over one need to get to another. You're addressing every need that you see as you're walking through life. Like you said, hey, my work is acts of service, right? It's like, that's where it's at. You're not walking over a need to get to another. You're like, no, I see this need. I'm going to work this need. I'm going to do the best I can in this. I may not be the full answer to it. Maybe it's pointing them to an answer. Right. But at least we can be something for them at this moment.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, that's the part I love. I was like, I was going to ask you, like, what does great look like? But you explained it like, man, great looks like being able to do this work, man, to be able to do this. And that's the part, right? CTN, Javier and his team, right? They created this space to come and highlight what people are doing in our city, right? Because that's the part. I don't think a lot of people know the good work that God is doing through many people, man. And how we can partner with them, right? How we can come alongside of them. Maybe we can't come alongside of, but maybe we're like, hey, we can point people your direction. Maybe we
Right.
can contact you, like, hey, there's somebody that we know that
Yeah.
can benefit from
Right.
the words that come
The
from your
words.
mouth. It's like what is this? Like, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
I
Right?
know that.
Maybe they may not understand my words, but
Right.
they might understand your words.
Right.
Right. And that's the part. And I love the fact is like the gears, like, words are rich. You know what I mean? And so before we get into your organization, everything, let the people know who Oli is. I mean, because it's one thing to know the work of the man. It's different to know the man who does the work and why they're doing it.
That's a good question. And so when we get into who Oli Porter is, Oli Porter is someone who once was lost. And I like to consider myself found only because I found a way that works for me.
Come on, man.
Right? Not because the found that I found might work for everybody else. You said something earlier, you might not see the work that the Lord is doing in everyone's lives, right? And the people that he's using to do work, right? To do acts of service, right? Yeah. For me, Oli Porter starts back at 7 years old, right? And he's this young kid, and he's waiting for his father to come get him, and his father doesn't come. He learns that by way of his mother saying, hey, put your stuff up, your dad's not coming. And the first emotion that he feels is hurt, right? Because he's like, man, where's dad, right?
Yeah.
But in a sense, he doesn't know if dad has traffic. He doesn't know if dad's working late. At 7 years old, I'm too young to understand life and what actually responsibilities come with it. All I know is my dad said he's coming and he didn't come. And once I start to display this emotion of being hurt, in the same instance, I'm told not to cry about it. Right, because the stigma that men don't cry.
Yeah.
So Oli Porter now has decided to mask his hurt with anger. And the reason why I point that out, because before I could tell you my story, I have to tell you where it began.
Absolutely.
And for me, it was 7 years old. And from there, I learned how to mask anger, mask my hurt with anger every time I felt hurt, right? Every time I felt let down. So a lot of that, just kind of carried on into elementary school, junior high school, high school. Eventually, at 13 years old, going into 9th grade, I'm out on my own. Essentially, I don't live in the house with my parents anymore. I've already ran away. I've already been out in the streets. I'm already starting this lifestyle of criminal thinking and gang banging and being involved with different things. I'm the oldest on both sides when it comes to being the boy, like a male, right? I got 2 older sisters, but I'm still the big brother because I'm the oldest man. So that's just kind of how it is. Something happens, they call me anyway. I got to move stuff around the house. I got to carry in all the groceries. Like, I'm the guy. I got to take out the trash, right? So, growing up with that sense of responsibility gave me that leadership characteristic and that I had installed in me as a kid, but still feeling abandoned because I wasn't getting the attention that I felt I needed from my parents, right? That is who Oli Porter was at the core when I say lost, right? So we mentioned, not knowing how to deal with, ultimately, we're talking about emotional intelligence, right? So not knowing how to deal with my emotions, being hurt, how to speak, and even feeling like it's a safe space to speak within the household, right? Taking that out into society, well, anytime now somebody hurt my feelings, since I'm mastered with anger, I respond and react with anger. I've been suppressing and repressing these emotions for so long that the only way I know how to let them out is by showing anger, mad, right? Doing things that I don't even know why I'm doing it, except that I can't talk to nobody about it because they don't teach you that either when you coming up, at least not for me.
100%.
So a lot of navigate roads that I never even walked on before. A lot of misinstructions, right? And bad advice. Not really understanding what's good for me and what's not. Because again, at 13 years old, when I'm out here by myself, the people that are now showing me love and camaraderie, them the homies. Them the friends and my older cousins. I got my name from my cousin. They're my older cousins. You go out there and you do a couple fights and you do something wrong. Everybody give you a
nickname.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Applaud. And
so
now you think you're on the right track. And you're like, man, this is what I've been missing. This is the piece. I'm not knowing then that was just the beginning of my path of destruction. So, when we talk about Oli Porter, we talking about a young man who grew from this 7-year-old kid and took these emotions and suppressed this anger and carried that through life until he couldn't run away from it no more. I found myself in trouble early 2014, 15, and I was being charged with being a leader of a criminal organization. And, at that time I was looking at over 134 years. And I don't say it lightly or for it to be like a thing. This is what the paperwork says.
This was the
truth.
This
was reality, right? And it's because I answer the call that you mentioned earlier about answering the call. I didn't answer the call at a young age. I ignored it because you can't skip the fact that my parents did everything they could.
Yeah.
You know, without an instruction manual.
Yeah.
I knew I was in church. I went, you know what I'm saying? I played the drums before, you know, I went to the choir practice.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I was getting pretty good grades. I played sports, football. Like I wasn't just this kid that was just a bad kid.
Right.
It was just a point in my life where things didn't really work out how I needed them to work out, and I had nobody to help me figure it out.
Yeah.
So I chose to take matters into my own hand, and that led me on the path of destruction. Because I don't know, like, how do you know wrong from right?
Yeah, and that's the part, right? Because you think right now, culture, society, right, says, oh yeah, at the age of 5, a child can decide what gender they are, whatever the case may be, and it's like, no, they can't barely tie their shoes, they can't
put their
make a
name
meal
on the top of the paper,
right, neatly,
right,
right. And so, like you said, hey, at the age of 13, it's like I thought I knew,
I thought I knew,
but I didn't know. And there's something that you said I thought was so interesting because I've been through therapy, right?
Yeah,
and that. You said, hey, I displayed it in anger, right? And it's interesting because anger is not a true emotion.
No, it's not.
Right?
It's
Anger is an outward expression of what you truly feel. So when you said, hey, I was hurt and I displayed it in anger, I was like, he knows exactly what's going on now. Because it's like, how I truly felt was I was hurt. And how I displayed it wasn't by anger. So it's an outward expression. And I think people, especially men, need to understand that the emotional intelligence aspect, right? Is that if you consider yourself let me just look at the camera right here. If you consider yourself an angry man, an angry woman, you're not angry. You're either hurt, you've been disrespected, maybe you there's something else going on, because anger is only an expression of what you truly feel.
There it is.
You know,
right? And so listening to you say that, you know, it brings joy to my heart because it also lets me know that you have walked that path. And that's what I call the path for reconstruction, right? Like you said, you mentioned it as therapy, not a word that people use, right?
Oh, no.
Oh, I don't want to talk about therapy. Oh, nobody want to talk about getting help, you know?
Right.
So, you know, that's fine. But we're going to call it the path for reconstruction because on that path, you go get the resources that you need for yourself. And that can look like therapy. That can look like meditation. For some people, that can look like gym, right? What I'm talking about is coping skills. What I'm talking about is like the right tools, right? Growing up, you remember the show Bob the Builder, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So if you ever pay attention on the show, Bob only had a hammer.
Yeah.
He had a toolbox, but he always had a hammer every time he built something. You see, but that's not the real world. You need different tools. You can't just use a hammer, and we know that.
That's good.
So I was on the path for reconstruction, but it took me a while to get there. I had to go and do some things and learn myself all over again until I was ready to answer the call. So that kid that now progressed from 17 up into that 2014-15 sentence at 20 years old, I ended up getting sentenced to 15 years in prison. I did 10 of those 15 years, and 8 years in is when I really discovered my why. And I'll tell you the story, but I'll keep it very short in a way to get you to understand the why. And it was a visit. I have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. I love them all dearly, but this particular visit was with my daughter. And, as a man, and I say that because I learned the difference, right? And I learned the difference between a man and the man. You see, most of my life, I was busy trying to be the man,
Yeah.
So everything I did outwardly displayed pride,
arrogance,
right? Because I think that the man is who I should be. But in that moment, in that visiting room, I realized that, as a man, I was letting my little girl down, the one that I'm supposed to protect,
That's powerful.
And
bro.
I didn't realize that until it was time to go. And if you've never been in that setting before, a visiting room, when you're incarcerated, or maybe you visit someone incarcerated, it's something that always happens at the end, and that's tears, right? The visitors begin to cry. And in that moment, when it was time for me to go back, my daughter began to cry, and it was a cry that, that you never want to hear as a parent,
It's from the inside.
From the inside. And I didn't even know no one cared about me that much. And so in the moment, 6 years old, what do you tell her? What could you tell a 6-year-old child that only wants to know one thing? Why can't you go with me, or why can't I go with you?
The question for you, did it remind you of the 7-year-old you?
Most definitely. In that moment, I was able to then connect with her and realize that here I am repeating exactly what I didn't want to become, which usually I believe happens, right? As kids, we say, I'm not going to be like my parent. I'm not going to be like my parent. Well, you either going to learn from what you saw as a mistake and become different, or you actually turn out just like them. You know, one or the other. And so in a sense, when I never actually set out to become that same individual that made my kid feel abandoned, I ended up doing that because of the choices that I was making weren't adding up. And that's, and we'll talk about that too. But like, here I am again in this visiting room and with nothing to say, you know, picture me getting down on my knees and this little girl, and I'm just like, you know, as much as I want to say something, I don't have any words. And then, you know, in there, hey, Porter, it's time to go.
Right.
So I got to go. You know, the most I can get out of this is a hug, and that's it. And I remember walking back across the yard, no matter how big I was, tough I looked, you know, whatever I thought I had going on, you know, because whatever, right? I was just as lost as that 7-year-old boy again. And I went back to, you know, my cell at the time, and I remember going inside and you know, I'm a man of faith. And so for me, it wasn't necessarily a coming to God moment, but it was more so like I knew I needed to pray. And so I prayed. And in that sense, I told myself, in order to make a difference, you got to do something different to make it.
Come on.
You know, a month later, I got into a class called Fathers Behind Bars. And that was the first chance. Like, talk about therapy, right? That was my first form of therapy. It was called Fathers Behind Bars. That's why I call it the path for Reconstruction, because therapy might like look different for everybody else. But this class was the class I needed to learn how to become a better father.
That was the closest that you had.
That was it.
You
know what I'm saying? I didn't know who to talk to, but they had a class that said Fathers Behind Bars. To me, that made it like, okay, if I go to this class, I'm a father behind. I might learn how to become a better father. And I'm realizing that what I'm doing isn't working. Right? You know, I call myself a parent. Like, you ask anybody that have kids, you can ask them, do you love your kids? The normal answer is going to be yes. Like, I'm 99.99% of the time it's going to be yes. And then we say, well, let's look at your actions. Because that's what I had to learn. That my actions did not display that I actually love my kids. I was putting my time and everything, my focus, into so many different things outside of my kids. But they had you to ask me on a good day, oh, I'm doing this for them.
Right.
You know, I'm making excuses on why I'm doing the wrong things, trying to do the right thing.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's the difference between, you know, who knows wrong from right again, right? I'm right back to that kid that don't know wrong from right at 13. And so in order to make a difference, I had to do something different to make it. So I began taking, you know, help, right? You know, and it's this thing I live by, and it's, if you don't know what help looks like, you'll walk right past it. You know?
Say that one more time, because somebody might need to hear that. Listen, right there.
It's something that you should know. And the truth is, if you don't know what help looks like, you'll walk right past it. And that's something I had to learn myself. So in order to make a difference, I had to do something different to make it. I couldn't expect something different doing the same thing. You know, like insanity, right? I couldn't. There's no way. So I started to again go to classes. These same classes was classes that maybe people maybe once looked at as like, you know, weak, right? On the prison yard, level 4, maximum security. You going to class? We on the yard hanging out. You not coming out here with us? Are you going to learn something? Like, it's not promoted. You know, if you get straight A's, do you go back and tell your friends, or do you tell your parents?
Yeah, you don't tell your friends, because
Probably
your friends be like, oh, look at this guy over here,
nerd, right? Anything they could think of to not necessarily assault you and uplift you. So now, should you feel like that's not something you could share? Or should you reconsider your friends?
Yeah, and see, and that's the part. That's the part, right? Is the reconsideration of our friends, because what we will do is we will allow someone to go ahead and cast their insecurities onto us, so that way we don't do what we know we should be doing to get past where we are. Right. So they say, hey, the crab's in the bucket, right? They pull the other one down. It's like, no. Actually, if anything, we need to be pushing each other up, so that way when you get up, at least we you know how, you know the struggle, you know what it takes. So we say, hey, grab my hand, go ahead and pull up here. When you get up here, put your leg up over here. And that's the part, you know, I like to say that, hey, we need to be the Moses to some people to show them the way out, because they don't know the way.
Listen, they don't know the way. But you know what? I'm not Moses, but I do know the way. And right then and there, you know, that's where you get Words of Rich Foundation. You know, to me, that's the way. If anybody asks what that is, right, first, just within the definition, words are rich. Words are powerful. Words have the power to end wars. Words have the power to begin wars, right? Words have the power to help people, hurt people. Words have the power to uplift people or hold them down.
Yeah.
Words have the power to trap you in a prison within your own self, and that's positive and negative self-talk right there. So no one even has to be talking to you. And those words that you say to yourself can hold you back from becoming the best version of yourself.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Think about the children of Israel, right? They're about to go into Canaan.
Yeah.
Right? And here's a part. They see the enemy.
Yes.
The enemy doesn't say not one word to them. They come back and say, hey,
Yeah.
we are grasshoppers in their sight. It's like who told y'all?
They need that.
And so you think, like you said,
I told y'all to get ready to go.
Self-talk will keep us where we are.
Right.
And then you have two people that's like, hey, no, if the Lord is on our side,
Right.
we can make it through. So here's a question, because
Yes.
we have a few moments left.
Got it.
So now here we are. You're now on this path. You're healing, right?
Yes.
You're coming to this place. And now you're like, hey, you know what? I realize how powerful words are.
Right.
Now when you learn this, what happens? Because I'm looking at your hat and it says words are rich. What changed? Because something happened and you're like, I need people to know how powerful words are.
Right. And so for me, that change came by way of understanding that, like, if I use these words right, I might not know who they impact or how they impact them, but it will be impactful. Right. And so now choosing my words wisely.
Yeah.
Understanding that it's not often growing up that I even heard kind things like, you know, man, I like your jacket over there, man, nice shoes, you know what I'm saying? You look good, you know. That's not something that might happen on a regular basis just between men, or even a kind gesture like, man, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
And I can say that now, sitting across from you, and say, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
And I can also say, when the last time you heard that?
Yeah.
And maybe you got good people in your life that tell you that, but that's not common for everybody. So I knew that I couldn't fix it by myself, but I knew that if I created the foundation, right? Words are rich, right? Something that we now displayed on a daily basis, we can combat the words that, again, negative self-talk. We can combat all the other words that's putting out in the music industry, right? Common social media, right? One of the biggest addictions we have right now in the world, right? And also considered a drug, right? So all the different things, like that we have going against that, right? I know now that the side that I choose that I want to be on, and that's putting out positivity into the world, right? And so we do that at Words Rich Foundation, right? We work with the youth and their families, you know, teaching them tools, providing resources through mentoring and coaching to help them build resistance, right? Become productive members in society, right? And we do that by speaking life into them, right? Not saying, hey, your dreams are not possible, they're not going to work. No, let's talk about your dreams. Let's see how we can help them work. But I also want you to keep in mind that you may want to get a trade, or you may want to learn, you know, how to make some money in financial literacy or different things, because, you know, like ABC, a job, right? Better job, career, and dream goal, right? Dream job, right? Like you gotta work the steps. You just don't skip it.
No, you can't.
And I only know this because I've been through it, right? So now I can come back and, like Moses did, right, show the way. And so I think that's where, like, trials, tribulations come in hand out. Like, you go through things for other people, not yourself. I believe that. I believe that although you may be almost like, a little different from Job, but almost like Job was in a sense, right? Going through things. To this day, that's one of the most impactful stories to me in the book, right? As I read it, or as I go back and sometimes elaborate on it, right? When I think about some of the trials and tribulations I face, I can look at Job and say, I haven't even been through nothing. When you think about that, right? And not making light of either situation, because in the moment when people are having problems, everybody, that's the most, like, you can't go to anybody and say, like, your problem isn't as bad as mine. Like, everyone feels like their problem is the biggest problem.
Because it's a bigger problem in their life.
Right.
Probably not in your life. But in theirs, it's a big deal.
Right. And so all that I can do now is come to you with these good words and offer you some type of solution, some type of way out, some type of resolve, some type of peace, some type of encouragement, some inspiration, some guidance. So what I say at all times, instructions. If I don't do anything, I leave you some instructions.
And speaking of instructions, you have a book.
I do.
Right. Yeah. This is it right here.
That's it right there.
Yeah, man. So let's talk about that for the next couple moments here.
So right here, what we have is called the Path of Reconstruction, right? And this right here is your workbook, and it allows you to go through a 21 lesson curriculum that we put together that highlights emotional intelligence, that EI again, right? Anger management. We get down again to time management, financial literacy, talk about substance abuse. But really, to sum it up, it's like helping you identify causative factors, right? You know, before you end up on the path of reconstruction, you have to first realize what path you on. And so as you start to rebuild, you might not know where to start. So because I've been down that road, I left a trail, right? You know, little highlights along the way, flares and stuff. All you gotta do is follow that path. And if I don't leave you nothing else, I left you the instructions on how to pick up your life, no matter where you at, and reconstruct it into the way that works for you to become successful. So this is what I call like almost like the 3 rules that I live by, which is a book that we're getting ready to put out coming in the spring. So it's called the 3 rules to transform your life, right? And the first rule is non-negotiable, right? You shouldn't be negotiating your life with everybody.
Brother.
Second rule is define success for yourself. If not, then you'll be living up to the definition of somebody else's success. And then the third rule is nothing for nothing. At all times, you have to know if you do nothing, you get nothing from it. So make sure what you're doing is not for nothing.
Come on. That's good stuff, man.
Appreciate you.
Dude, I love that, man, bro. Especially the success part, right? Because, you know, the thing is, everybody has a different definition of success.
Right.
So which means that success becomes relative to how you see failure, right?
Correct.
You know, and so it's one of those you're like, hey, yeah, let's talk about success. And be careful, because what one person may seem successful for your life is not successful for your life. It's just because they define in their life they weren't able to accomplish it. You know, so I love that you're like, hey, you need to embrace what's going to be successful for you. Right. You know, make it non-negotiable. Like and the part is, if you don't put in nothing, don't expect nothing.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, it goes into what the gospel says. Hey, sow and reap. And it's like, if you don't sow, don't expect to get a harvest. Don't expect to be able to go outside and be like, I'm gonna go ahead and get this fruit from the tree. No, you didn't even plant the seed.
And you know my favorite, right? Faith without works is dead.
Come on.
You know, so we talk about doing nothing for nothing, and you got all the faith in the world. They say only a mustard seed. You got all the faith in the world, but you're not putting in no work.
Come on.
It's not gonna do itself.
It shows not. Man, I love that, bro. So in our last moments here, how can someone get in contact and learn more and get more information about your organization, website, social media, number, whatever you have? Can you give that to somebody? Because someone be like, you know what? I need to get my son, my daughter into the presence of this organization. That's
a good question. So for those watching and maybe be interested into becoming a part of the program, from ages 12 to 25, we serve. And I would just direct you to wordsofrich.com, where you can contact me on a contact page. Also, CEO@wordsofrich.org is my personal email. Or if a number you want to reach me is 951-312-0750. Anyone of those will get you directly in contact with me or my staff. And we're here to help. We're here to serve. At wordsofrich.com, we do a lot of donating, fundraising events, different things like that, going out doing outreach. And we also have a link on there where if you want to donate or if you want to help us fundraise, you know, for a goal or for a particular family or an event, you can do that as well. So those would be the places that you can reach me.
No, man, that's so good, bro. Number one, I want to say thank you for saying yes to the Lord. And saying yes to him changing your life, because obviously, I mean, and I just want to take a moment just because you saw it in your face, you saw it in your demeanor when you reminisced of looking at your daughter. You're like, that was a pivotal moment. That was the moment that I was like, from here, I reconstruct. From here, I rebuild. From here, I'm not Bob the Builder with just a hammer. I have a toolbox full of things, and I've been giving them. And I'm going to start using every tool that I have in order to rebuild from this place, because I cannot damage and I cannot let my little girl see me like this anymore.
That's right.
Yeah, man. So thank you for saying yes. Thank you for coming up on the show and sharing your organization and your life with us, man. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Javier and CTN, for having me, and thank you as well.
Oh, absolutely. We want to thank you guys as well for tuning in, and we pray that you were blessed by today. And keep in mind, as it was said, hey, everyone needs to be on a road of reconstruction. Everybody's on one path. The thing is, we want to be on a path that we're on reconstruction, where God is reconstructing your life in a manner that he sees fit for you and how he designed you. Other than that, we will see you guys next time on Las Vegas United.
Our show is hosted by Pastor Dada Presley from Connection Church LV. To learn more about him and his ministry, please visit myconnectionlv.org. The guest this week is Oli Porter from Words Are Rich. For more information, please visit wordsaererich.com and follow on social media at wordsaererich. For more information about CTN Vegas and our show, please visit ctnvegas.com.